What if Ron Weasley was sorted into Hufflepuff instead of Gryffindor? Part 8. Hey, brother! Welcome back, everyone, to the wizarding world of Ronflepuff, where last we left our heroes, Ron had just returned back from the graveyard with the body of Lucius Malfoy and revealed to everyone that Voldemort had returned. It's the exact same information that Harry had been telling everyone ahead of time, having glimpsed into Voldemort's mind as he was coming back. Bearing witness to events and with the overwhelming evidence presented to him along with the shocking reveal of Barty Crouch Jr., Fudge is forced to accept the truth he is normally so determined to ignore. Voldemort is back. He's back. And this is a massive blow to Voldemort's momentum, who can usually rely on the Ministry's propaganda machine to basically do a lion's share of the work for him. Because usually Voldemort can spend all of year 5 virtually unopposed by the greater wizarding world, where he can gain momentum, build a followership, infiltrate the Ministry, cause a breakout in Azkaban, and target the prophecy. All of which is vital to lay out because you may be sitting there wondering, y'all took 3 whole episodes to cover Goblet of Fire, and you said last week you were going to try and finish 3 books in 1 video? And the answer is... and we're gonna see how far we get, okay? So hop aboard as we attempt to explain just how Ron being in Hufflepuff can make a massive difference in the ultimate fight against Voldemort. Hey, brother! Okay, so Ron's return from the graveyard with Lucius Malfoy's body and all the information that corroborates everything Harry has been telling Dumbledore, Fudge, McGonagall, Snape, and Barty Crouch Sr. is enormous, because it means that Fudge and the Ministry cannot ignore the validity of Harry's claims. This could never be more vital because of the massive toll it is going to take on Voldemort's plan, which I'd love to outline for you with some good old-fashioned Death Eater math. That's math and not mask. And yes, we did pay the math budget, which may have been in vain because Death Eaters are not numbers, but I digress. They just could have told me that before I checked out, you know? You have to use that math budget somewhere else. Let me just say, though, that even if they aren't numbers, they also certainly don't have them. Now, to be fair, Voldemort's regime under normal circumstances isn't absolutely massive. At the time of his return, his entire envoy totals to 25 key followers. One of them is Snape, who is a double agent. Karkaroff will ultimately flee. Draco will become one of them and never truly participates. And Barty Crouch Jr. immediately has the Dementor's Kiss administered and is not really providing anyone, anywhere, any utility, even at all. I'll show you mine if you show me yours.
Where is that?
That's when he does the... oh gosh, they're gonna clip that. Gotta remember I'm on camera.
I'll show you mine if you show me yours.
That means 21 key followers, 10 of whom are currently in Azkaban prison, which is important to point out because in this version of the narrative, Fudge will actively take Dumbledore's advice and swap out the Dementors with Aurors, which will make security far more ironclad. That brings Voldemort down to 11 followers he can actually count on, but it's even less than that because that's just the number in the main story. Don't forget that this time around, Peter Pettigrew was caught rather than reuniting with Voldemort, meaning he's in Azkaban too, and that Voldemort made the now obviously costly mistake of killing Lucius Malfoy, bringing his available numbers to 9 on the night of his rebirth. But it gets even worse, because as Voldemort was welcoming everyone back, he made the mistake of naming out loud a big portion of them.
Crap! Doyle!
Which usually Harry, but in this case Ron, is able to just repeat to the Ministry. McNair, Harry continued, also cleared, now working for the Ministry. Avery, Nott, Crabbe, Goyle, you are merely repeating the names of those who were acquitted of being Death Eaters 13 years ago. I feel like my voice just slowly turned into the principal from the Goofy movie. Science? Slumber parties! Anybody get that reference?
How about science slumber parties?
That's Fudge normally dismissing all of this information, but again, this time he won't. This time they can pretty swiftly round up these names, trusting the intel from Ron that they are Death Eaters, meaning 5 more of Voldemort's supporters are about to disappear, leaving him with just, if my count is correct, 4 Death Eaters. The Caro siblings, Amicus and Alecto, Corbin, Yaxley, and Selwyn. And Snape, who, as mentioned, is a mole, and maybe Draco, who presently blames Ron for his father's death, but let's face it, it's clearly Voldemort's fault. Doubt that will come up later. It's gonna come up later. Not to mention, with the Dementors cleared from Azkaban and terror not being rained upon the wizarding world, they are not able to amass their typical numbers. Dumbledore also suggests to Fudge that he send envoys to the Giants to gain their support, which Hagrid and Madame Maxime typically have to do on their own and in secret. This time, not only does it not have to be a secret, but the Ministry can help them. They have better gifts to send, they can make more significant promises, and even provide extra numbers and security so that the 4 remaining Death Eaters aren't an issue. Let's be real, what were they gonna do anyway? So, if you're keeping track, Voldemort has way fewer numbers, no Giants, no Dementors, he still can't physically touch Harry, and doesn't actually know about the twin cores because he doesn't know that Ron was wielding Harry's wand in their duel, so he isn't attempting to seek out the Elder Wand. At least for now. So, what is Voldemort doing? And it's a great question, because usually his first plan is to try and secure the prophecy, which he's only heard half of, hoping it will give him the edge or an answer to how Harry defeated him in the first place. Even more bad news for Voldemort on this front, because usually Voldemort successfully gets a solid 12 Death Eaters into the Department of Mysteries and still fails to get it. This time, again, he only has 4 Death Eaters, and Dumbledore can just inform the Ministry that Voldemort will be trying to get it, and therefore they need to seriously improve security and make that a priority. And Voldemort can barely get inside when just the Order is secretly guarding it under the Ministry's noses. This time, they are actively protecting it. He cannot get it. That said, not a huge blow anyway, because even in the main story, he never gets it, so that doesn't change that much other than that he won't spend a whole year fruitlessly trying to get it. But y'all, we need to take a brief pause right there to give a huge thank you to today's sponsor, Uncommon Goods. We are officially in November, which means it is officially the holiday season, which means it is also time to start hunting for the perfect thoughtful gifts for your loved ones, and there is seriously no better place to start than with Uncommon Goods. Sometimes I think it would just be like the best job ever to curate items for this website, just hunting for all the original, handmade, or absolutely remarkable things, but in the meantime, I'll enjoy all the hard work they've already put in and track down some amazing gifts. One thing that I always loved growing up was an advent calendar. Like, nothing kept the holiday spirit more at center stage than getting to crack a little door open each day, and they've got an amazing jigsaw puzzle version, which is so fun because it means each day you have a tiny little activity that you can do together. Plus, at the end of the month, they all form together to make a bigger picture. Or if you like to go the custom route or have pets or both, you can check out their embroidered custom pet sweatshirts, or as I like to call them, pwet shirts. That's worse. Okay, not the best name for them, but they look amazing. Y'all, just be sure to check it all out and get 15% off your next gift when you go to uncommongoods.com/supercarlin. That's uncommongoods.com/supercarlin for 15% off. Don't miss out on this limited time offer. Uncommon Goods, we're all out of the ordinary. Even with all of that out of the way, it's not that Voldemort doesn't still have some very key defenses in place, namely his Horcruxes. At this point, Dumbledore would still be tipped off to their existence thanks to the diary in the Chamber of Secrets. Dumbledore will also have been able to use this information to learn that a piece of Voldemort lives inside of Harry as well. There's a reason Harry can talk to snakes. There's a reason he can see into Lord Voldemort's mind. And now typically one huge challenge that takes most of Half-Blood Prince to sort out is just how many Horcruxes Voldemort has actually made beyond the 2 he's already sure of that exist. This information comes from Slughorn, who had learned during Tom Riddle's time at school that 7 would be the most powerfully magical number.
Can you only split the soul once? For instance, isn't 7?
7?
Information that Slughorn is typically super reluctant to reveal because of personal shame, and he values his own safety and fears the Death Eaters will come after him if they discover he's turned it over.
Merlin's beard! No need to disfigure me, Albus.
Once again, Voldemort is at a loss here, because without such a threatening power position and the Ministry backing Dumbledore, Slughorn can feel a lot safer about his position and just willingly give the information to Dumbledore. So rather than being the one who gave Voldemort the key to victory, he can be the one who gave Dumbledore the key to victory. Or, well, I guess kind of both, but you know what I mean. The real question is, what can Voldemort do? Because even his initial plan of taking Harry's blood into his body doesn't work out, meaning he can't touch Harry, like not just physically, but like magically either. the protection is still in place. And yet, Harry is still his main threat, but getting hands on him a second time is going to be difficult. So is there another way around that protection? Possibly. What if the answer is just more power? The most power? The Elder Wand. He usually turns to this option to overcome the twin cores, but this time he will be leaning on sheer power alone to overcome Lily's protection. Meanwhile, his other usual plan is to try and kill Dumbledore, something I'm sure he's still eager to do, but as ever, a tall order. One that perhaps requires a short man. So let's get back to Harry and Ron. How does the fight against Voldemort go for them in their 5th year? Well, Dumbledore is of course very impressed with Ron's bravery in the graveyard. He usually tells Harry, "You have shown bravery beyond anything I could have expected of you tonight, Harry. You have shown bravery equal to those who have died fighting Voldemort at the height of his powers." He tells Ron the same thing, adding that he wonders sometimes if they sort too early. Either way, the fact that Voldemort took Ron's blood into himself seems in Dumbledore's eyes to include Ron a lot more in the conversation that is usually just reserved for Harry. Harry is of course obviously still the chosen one.
I am the chosen one.
And subject of the prophecy, but Ron is now clearly tied to Voldemort's fate, and so when it comes to hunting Horcruxes, which starts happening a lot faster, both boys are going to be included. And so as their 5th year begins, there are some clear differences. For one, the Defense Against the Dark Arts position. Since we don't have to worry about the Ministry this go round, we also don't have to worry about Umbridge. Yay!
Has asked me to remind you.
But it also brings up an interesting question of what she would be up to this year. Usually she's just the absolute worst, but it's all in the name of supporting Fudge, whose own agenda is against Dumbledore. This time though, Fudge just is aligned with Dumbledore, so is Umbridge as well? Makes me a little dry heave just thinking about it. You might think that this is pretty bad news for Voldemort, since Umbridge, despite being totally evil, is very effective at her job, and if she's aimed a different way, then well, super. But don't forget that she still works at the Ministry after year 5 when the Ministry is openly against Voldemort, and we never hear from her, and it's not until the Ministry has basically fallen and is being run by Voldemort that she ramps up production again. While she can be hyper-effective, this is usually only when the Ministry aligns with her own very self-centered, power-hungry, pure-blood beliefs. She is still a bad person under it all, and therefore I think just a regular Ministry employee for the most part. Maybe a little disgruntled?
I will have order.
To which I have no empathy. At all. But so the bigger question is, who teaches Defense Against the Dark Arts? And you guessed it, the still living Sirius Black. Don't forget, his name is totally cleared this time, and we know for sure that he's a really great wizard in this regard.
Nice one, James.
Plus, Umbridge's absence also means that Harry won't need to form the DA this time around, but he hardly needs to. Sirius's classes are very similar to DA meetings anyway, and it turns out he's an epic teacher. Really, the school year itself is a lot less important than the hunt for the Horcruxes, which I think start, as always, with the Gaunt Shack and the Ring. Dumbledore, having unearthed Tom Riddle's origins, knows that this location could be essential and begins his sleuthing, and returns the ring to Hogwarts, where Ron and Harry are both summoned to witness it and hopefully its destruction. Enter! Came Dumbledore's soft voice as they wound their way past the gargoyle statue and rapped on the Griffin knocker. As the boys entered, they both said hello to Fox, who was perched next to Dumbledore's desk. The relationship between the two has been very solid since the night of the graveyard. Ron understands more than ever Harry's fundamental importance in the wizarding world, and now has first-hand experience with the kind of danger and threats Harry's been having to put up with. And at any rate, Ron got a bit of notoriety himself for having been the one to see Voldemort come back and having escaped him in the graveyard. I was fortunate enough to have found this, says Dumbledore, holding up the ring, in the Gaunt Shack. I'm sure you both recall the memory we visited earlier this year. You may look, but please do not touch. Both boys lean forward to examine the ring up close. I believe it to be one of Voldemort's Horcruxes, and have summoned you both here to witness how to destroy such an object. Though I'm not sure too much instruction is truly needed, as Harry, you have already succeeded in destroying this one, he says, sliding Riddle's diary across his desk. Basilisk venom? Harry questioned. But Professor, how will we get it? Ah, yet again, we must thank you, Harry, for when you killed the basilisk with Gryffindor's sword, you imbibed it with basilisk venom. The sword is goblin-made, you see, and that is capable of absorbing that which makes it stronger. Professor, Ron speaks up, what is this triangle marking on the ring? It looks kind of like an eye or something. The what? Asks Dumbledore, who comes around the desk to examine the ring himself, but as he does so, he gasps, taking it in his hand. It cannot be. Dumbledore's eyes become unfocused, as if he's reliving a long-lost memory. Ron and Harry exchange a nervous glance as Dumbledore turns his back toward them, lost in thought. Ariana, he whispers, and then, without warning, slips the ring on his finger. The effect is immediate. Dumbledore is on the floor in agonizing pain. The ring skitters off and comes to a halt, spinning on the floor of the office. Ron and Harry immediately rush to Dumbledore, whose eyes have rolled back in his head, his body was shaking, and his hand looked charred from the ring. Destroy it! Now! His last words came out forcefully, and Harry shot for the sword of Gryffindor behind his desk. Raising it up above his head, he smashed it into the ring, which erupted in a wave of black smoke that cleared to reveal the ring cracked on the stone floor before him. Harry looked at Dumbledore, thinking the destruction would bring him relief, but nothing was further from the truth. He was still trembling, and Ron looked terrified. What do we do? Ron shouted hopelessly, looking around the room as if there was some kind of cure that Dumbledore may have prepared just in case something like this had happened. Fawkes suddenly took flight, swooping around the room, grabbing a large brown something from a top shelf, which he quickly dropped. Grab it, Harry shouted, and Ron did so, revealing the sorting hat in his hand. What do I do? But as Ron lifted the hat, he noticed a shift in its weight. The hat let out a large belch, and as it did so, a large golden cup erupted from the tear in its brim. Ron lifted the cup and whispered quietly to himself, a badger. But again, looked confused. Fawkes swooped down again and landed upon his shoulder and lowered his face to the cup which Ron held out for him. Ron, hurry! Harry shouted, still at Dumbledore's side. Ron stared in amazement as several large pearly tears fell from the phoenix into the cup. And then, even though just a few drops had fallen into the cup, it suddenly began to fill all the way to the brim. Suddenly, it all made sense to Ron. He took a step towards Dumbledore, ready to offer him the healing liquid. But before he could, the cup began shaking violently in his hand. A horrible scream seemed to be coming from deep within the cup, which was now fuming a terrible black smoke into the office. Bewildered, Ron stared at the cup, determined not to spill the contents as it shook even harder, and even more smoke billowed out. And then suddenly, a bright golden glow. The smoke stopped abruptly as the phoenix tears shone brightly within the cup. The liquid looked as clear as ever. There was no time to think. Dumbledore was still in agony on the floor. Ron rushed to him and handed him the cup, which Dumbledore quickly drank down. And the effect was immediate. To both boys' astonishment, Dumbledore sat up, looking much calmer than he had seconds ago. His face was regaining color rapidly. He held up his hand. While it remained blackened, he flexed his fingers as if nothing had happened at all. Astonishing, he said, and then took a closer look at the cup and then back at Ron, who was still standing there, holding the hat. What just happened, Professor? Harry asked. An old man's curiosity, and the fortune of the brave, I dare say, responded Dumbledore. Mr. Weasley, do you know what this is? Hang on, said Harry, who was just now getting a good look at the cup. Is that the cup from Hepzibah Smith? Hufflepuff's cup? Indeed it is, Harry, said Dumbledore, looking warmly at him. But how? Ron asked, quietly staring at the cup. To his surprise, it was Harry who answered. When I faced the basilisk, Fawkes brought me the hat. Dumbledore said I was able to pull the sword out of it because I was a true Gryffindor. You must have done the same thing with the cup. I couldn't have said it better myself, said Dumbledore, still looking impressed. Hepzibah claimed the cup was supposed to have many powers, and I think we have just bore witness to at least one of them. Mr. Weasley, could you describe again for me what happened? I am afraid I may have missed the finer details in my, agony. Ron explained the tears, the smoke, and the glow to Dumbledore. Well, it appears this cup is able to multiply whatever liquid is added to it. Producing an entire goblet full of phoenix tears is no mere feat. It is a highly scarce substance. And the smoke? Asked Ron. Well, that is the exciting part. I believe that once full of phoenix tears, the cup itself drank the tears, which then came in contact with Voldemort's soul, which was simply no match. So that smoke, that screaming, that was... sputtered Harry. Yes, that I believe was Voldemort's soul being purged from the cup. The cup it seems to be a Horcrux no more. My own health is the proof. For I am certain that if Voldemort's soul resided in the cup, that drinking from it would have been as deadly as putting on the ring. Boom! Just like that. 3 Horcruxes down, 4 to go, which just as a friendly reminder is the same number of followers Voldemort currently has at his disposal. Yo, I am so excited about this particular section of the story because I have always sort of liked the idea that Phoenix Tears being powerful enough to heal Harry's basilisk wound could potentially be powerful enough to also destroy a Horcrux if only you had enough of them. So when applied to Hufflepuff's cup, which sort of goes back to the idea of like the sword of Gryffindor coming from the sorting hat, it all just sort of seemed to fall perfectly into place. What better way to use something so healing to destroy something so terrible? But y'all, we are getting so close to the finish line here with Ron and Hufflepuff. Be sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and leave any thoughts in the towel section down below. Otherwise, if you want to see part 9, that will be available right here as soon as that video is prepared. But otherwise, until next time, bye!